Welcome along to the two-man wall, which is the three-man wall today with our very special guest of Irish Independent and LOI Central fame, Daniel McDonnell. How are you, Dan?
I'm good, Johnny. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. We're obviously in the middle of Cheltenham, where we both look like we're a little bit flustered by all the racing, but football actually starts in Ireland tomorrow, and that's why we're previewing this season and giving it a special here on Star Sports. And Adam Russell, you've said you've something of the middle of a three-man wall here, rather covering your crotch and trying to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to League of Ireland coming back, but it is far from my forte. So I'm going to hand over to two much more senior pros in this regard. And I'm very much the middle man in this three-man wall who, not doing too much, just there, look pretty, covering my crotch, as you said off camera, Johnny.
Yeah, well, I actually said it on camera as well. But it's interesting, Dan, because you already have a connection with Adam in the sense that you've both had a bet on Bolton doing well this season. Adam was talking them up not that long ago at all, actually, when they were 8-1 to get promoted. But your bet is suitably obscure for a first-time visitor to this show.
Well, suitably, like it's a sort of a advertisement for like betting online, because I would have torn up this slip if it actually existed in real time, because I did it back at the start of the season. Because when Bolton signed Owen Doyle, who was the top scorer in League Two last year with Swindon, and I'd know Owen reasonably well. I've done a few pieces with him, and I just thought that was an amazing signing. I'm thinking, Bolton are going to go up. So they're almost like my bet builder in various accumulators. But I can't think what price they were to be promoted. It might have been 11-8 or something. I can't remember what it was at that stage.
Very sure.
Yeah, it was. But I just thought they were they were a certainty almost, and like they were like a booster for other stuff. So
you and me both.
Yeah. So I had them in with Norwich to be the top relegated team, which is home and hosed, and Lincoln. I knew Lincoln had spent a few quid, and to be in the top half of the table, they were really good price to be in the top half of the table. Now they're so Norwich and Lincoln are pretty much fine, but I've given up on Bolton completely. And I'd separately also done Owen Doyle as top scorer, and he started to score goals. Then I looked at the league table a couple of weeks ago. I think maybe it's not out of the question. And now it's almost like a Cheltenham race where they've gone off heavy and there's been a pace collapse, and all of a sudden like Bolton have come into it like Kilcruit at Leopardstown a couple of months, a month or so ago. There's sort of a run. You're thinking, maybe this could happen. So like Bolton all the way. I'm following my League Two results, far more closely than I ever have in my life prior to that, and possibly again.
He's just welcomed himself to the show there, Adam.
Yeah, that's some treble, isn't it? When that lands, I'm that confident in Bolton now. The upturn in form in the last 6 weeks has been unbelievable. And like I say, it's like a Cheltenham race where the pace has collapsed. It doesn't look like anyone else really wants to win it. So we didn't really start till November, but who cares? We'll go and win the league anyway.
Yeah, nice words, Dan. Let's get to the League of Ireland. So Star Sports outright betting Shamrock Rovers 5-6. Obviously won the title last year, albeit in a bridge campaign. Dundalk, who were always kind of challenging at the top up until last year, 11-4. Bohemians 13-2, Pats 11-1, Sligo 18-1, Derry 33s, and you can get each way terms as well, 1/3, 2 places. If you're explaining this to the British viewer, Dan, why should he or she be interested in having a bet on the League of Ireland? And if he or she watches a match, what's to be expected?
Yeah, well, listen, I suppose it's very obvious, but I mean, the League of Ireland is a summer league that's kicking off now. It's sort of, the season runs all the way through till November. So I suppose for the summer, it'll be quite a busy schedule through the year. I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of the League of Ireland. I think there's some good players within it, and I mean, from a betting perspective, obviously there's one of the things in recent years has been the dominance of a small number of clubs. Like in some ways, it's probably comparable to Scotland in a certain respects, in that, except maybe the identities of the teams have changed, at times. But it's been a two-horse race in recent years, most of the league, and two very dominant teams. And there's a big inequality between the top of the table and the bottom of the table. So, sometimes I think a lot of people's engagement with it betting wise will probably be almost accumulators and stuff, as opposed to maybe the big players, in the sense of focusing on single games. Because most weeks, I think you'll find Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk, the two outstanding teams. You would think, it'd be odds on most weeks. Very heavily odds on most weeks. And sometimes you have to try and get ahead of it and anticipate any change that might happen. I know, Johnny, you might fancy one other, you might fancy that it's more competitive this year, and that maybe the two at the top could be a bit too short. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I mean, listen, it's football that goes on through the year. It's you know, it's a small league. You know, it's a 10-team league. You know, if you do a bit of homework, it sort of can be rewarding enough. You know, you can get on top of the personalities of the sides pretty easily. And it's almost like sometimes there's 3 leagues within the league. You know, there's the top 2 or 3. There's that middle rump, and there's teams that are sort of cut adrift at the bottom. So, but like, you know, you will see a lot of, it is a league generally, take the betting side out of it. Like, it is a league generally where there's a lot of, you know, promising enough young players who you will find. It's become a much younger league in recent years. I think it's an important point to make. It's the League of Ireland when we grew up and you grew up, Johnny. It was more of an old man's league. You know, it was a games on a Sunday afternoon and points.
We were young and the players were old. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now we are old and the players are
young. Yes, it is the children that are wrong. And obviously, that's the point. Like, there is like, the definitely change towards younger players. If we talk about Dundalk, obviously the club most local to you growing up, and Flynn Goward, who I do trader chat with every Monday, he's obviously an Arsenal fan, so we got to see a bit of Dundalk last season. Star Sports, Dan, are top priced Dundalk at 11-4. Do you think the layers are on the right track here, or is that too big, especially when you're getting, third 2 places in the each way market?
See, I think they're probably the hardest team to me. They're not an each way bet at all. Like, I think Dundalk could either win the league or blow out, or certainly disappoint. I just wouldn't be. I think, you know, you're sort of going on the nose, I think, with them, really. Like, if you thought that Dundalk were going to have a stable year off the pitch, if you thought that, like, everything was normal there behind the scenes and off the pitch, they wouldn't be 11-4. You know, they wouldn't be. Like, in terms of the squad that they have, like, they have a squad that's like Shamrock Rovers, 5-6, Robert Dundalk 11-4. I think you're talking about 2 squads that are similar, perhaps around ability levels. Rovers have a more seasoned team in terms of they know the league, whereas Dundalk have brought in a couple of overseas recruits, from an international from Latvia, from the Faroe Islands, a Norwegian striker. The goalkeeper is a bit of a concern. It's an Albanian goalkeeper. And they're trying to roll the dice by bringing in players from outside the league, outside the traditional market. Now, it does look like 1 or 2 of the players they've signed are okay. But they have an unusual setup there. They don't have the pro license qualified manager. They're now saying he's the coach as opposed to the manager. There's a bit of, you know, there's an eccentric owner, eccentric chairman. I think if they started badly, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they, you know, got jumpy. They brought in Jim Magilton, probably a familiar name to, you know, the UK audience, as a sporting director on a 4-year deal, and he's more so overseeing the business side of the club. But listen, that's just getting bogged down in the detail. The broader point is, if Dundalk hit their potential, delivered the potentials in the squad, it should be a much closer title race. But there's a real fear that if they start badly, they could capitulate. You know, I spoke to a player today, who left. Like, 2 of Dundalk's best players moved to Shamrock Rovers over the winter, Sean Hoare and Sean Gannon. Sean Hoare basically detailed today how he had a 1-year contract offer from one club, which was Dundalk, and a 4-year contract from the other. And that sort of speaks about the business plan and the model. Dundalk are going short-term overseas recruits. Let's try and do it that way. Rovers are more long-term, stable, 3-year, 4-year contracts with established Irish players. The safer bet is Rovers, but I can understand why people are tempted to have a look at Dundalk, but I don't know. It's a tough one.
If Dundalk are bust this season, and you mentioned it's normally a bit of a 2-horse race, is there another team within that chasing pack who you think have a particular chance, either of you, of like stepping up this season and sort of making a bit more of a challenge to those top 2?
Well, Johnny, do you want to make the case for Pats there? I think Pats are 11-1. I can see the angle.
Yeah, so Pats are playing Shamrock Rovers. It's actually a brilliant first game of their first round of games tomorrow, and that's 7:45, and that's you can watch that obviously. And I'm just looking at we can briefly discuss this afterwards, Dan, the match odds there, because I think Pats are a bit of value. But yeah, it's just I'm looking for a bit of value at them, and if you're I don't think anti-post punchers in general like particularly backing odds on shots. I mean, It's one thing backing an odds-on shot in the first at Cheltenham today. It's another thing waiting 9 months to collect and possibly having a bit of a scare along the way. So I prefer to back Pats at 11-1 each way. The one thing about them last season was they just didn't score goals. Georgie Kelly didn't work out coming alone from Dundalk. But other than that, the games I watched of Pats against good teams, they were more than capable. They were very good against Rovers at times. And I think Ronan Coughlin that they've signed, if he has a good season, I fully expect Pats to be up there. And you're getting a bit of value, Dan. So that'll be my appraisal anyway. Yeah. I think Rovers are by far the most likely winner. I wouldn't have Dundalk. I don't know what to expect from them, but Pats would be my each way angle.
Yeah, I think Bows at 13, Bohemians at 13-2 are probably the, if you want if someone wants an each way bet, as you said, for a bit more fun, not a bit more fun. It's obviously serious bet, but I'm just saying they're a safe enough proposition, Bows. They're a well coached side. There's a certain degree of stability there. They've been improving every year. They've signed reasonably well over the winter. The slight concern is they've had a bit of uncertainty. But I think 13-2. We must mention about Rovers, they're odds-on shots, but they have lost arguably their two best players, Jack Byrne and Aaron McAniff. Jack Byrne's gone to Cyprus, Aaron McAniff to Hearts, and that's a hard thing to recover from. And they actually have a sort of a reasonably enough difficult fixture list at the start. You mentioned their first two home games against Pats and Dundalk. Their second game looks like it's going to be called off due to international break. I think game against Derry. I'd be inclined to almost sit and wait on Shamrock Rovers. In a month's time, there could be that could be the time to sort of play. I think it's over the course of the season. I think that the consistency and the stability of Rovers could come to the fore. By no means a guarantee they're going to start the season well. That's just something to be conscious of.
Yeah, well, what do you like in the match market, so Dan, if you're going for Bows as sort of an each way angle, and obviously Bows finished second last season and they've made some good signings as well. What do you like as in terms of the matches this weekend? I definitely fancy Drogheda to beat Waterford. I think I don't know what to expect from Waterford this season, but I think Drogheda will be far more stable. I'm all over Drogheda to beat Waterford on Friday, but I'm also liking Pats in the handicap and the draw no bet market. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm strong on Drogheda, same as you, Johnny. I think that's the bet of the weekend, really. So basically, for context for people, Waterford are owned by Lee Power, who obviously is Swindon Town as well, racehorse owner. And I suppose, again, they've taken an idiosyncratic approach in recent seasons that they bring in, Lee Power just brings in a management team, at short notice and drops them into the league. Last year it was John Sheridan who came in for, 10, 12 weeks and then headed off to Wigan. This year he's brought in Kevin Sheedy and Mike Newell. So Kevin Sheedy is 61, scored Ireland's first ever goal in the World Cup, but has never actually managed a team at senior level anywhere. Mike Newell has, and he's his assistant. They spent the last couple of years in Saudi Arabia. They've been dropped in to Waterford with basically only a handful of players on the books. Darryl Murphy, Brian Murphy, some players have been in the UK, played at a good level, but they've got a lot of loan players, local players. They've cobbled them together at short notice. Mixed reports about their pre-season performances, whereas Drogheda are promoted, good manager, solid squad, added well. And what price are they, Johnny, at the weekend? Drogheda to
I
win?
think they're 13-10. I'd still they have come in the betting, but they're still value for me. I think they'll go off money, if not odds on.
I think that's a very good bet.
Yeah,
that's to me that's the standout of the weekend.
What about Pats Rovers then?
I find that I think that's a slightly harder one. I mean, Pats definitely caused Rovers problems last year. I can see your handicap angle on that one. Yeah, I think there's a possibility that Rovers might be slow to click into gear. So that's something that in the opening weeks, I suppose people could. You'd expect Rovers are still going to be priced very short just because of they were unbeaten last year, dominant. So there might be a bit of value taking them on, but I wouldn't be advising people to get too carried away on that either. To be honest, I think
Anton, on your let's get to England now. We've 4 games in the Premier League to discuss, and Anton, in your anti-post book, Dan, we're talking about from the English game this year, apart from what we've mentioned.
No, not especially. I'm very much hanging in on Bolton now. I had a bit of a shocker otherwise, to be honest. I don't want to dwell on it too much. I thought I really fancied Raheem Sterling to be top scorer, and so if you said Man City were going to be 10, 15 points clear, and Sterling would have barely even got the double figures, I just I'll try not to. I don't want to even dwell on it. Not good. Bolton. I'm all in on Bolton now.
Yeah, of course, a mutual friend of ours, Adam, a mutual friend of Dan and I, during when the lockdown was over last year, there was that brief interlude where you could have a beer in the pub, and we'd had a few beers, and he offered me even money. We'd an even monkey that Leeds would finish below Aston Villa this season. So I was getting even money on Leeds, which I thought was an unbelievable bet. It was almost certainly an Arab at the time, and it looks like it's absolutely toast.
Yeah, well, you were trying to convince me at the start of the season that Leeds could push towards top 6.
Yeah, they've been a bit disappointing. You did say Craig Dawson last week would score 17-2 specifically from a set piece, and he did score.
Yeah, you can tell it's been a bad weekend when we're having to claim the own goals count. But thank God for Cheltenham. That's all I can say.
Yeah, what do we like this week? Obviously, Villa and Spurs is going to be a fascinating game. Villa could be a bit of value there, 21-10. And then we've West Ham, Arsenal, Brighton, Newcastle, and Fulham v Leeds.
Yeah, and obviously we've got the FA Cup as well, which sort of brings another interesting angle, especially a multiples angle. Our fans, you
backed that Manchester City to win all 4 at 9-1?
Yes, I have backed it at 9-1 because I've been claiming for weeks. I don't know what you think about this, Dan. City 9-1 to win all 4 major honours this season. Obviously, the league's wrapped up. The League Cup, they've got a final to play against Tottenham at the end of the season. FA Cup quarterfinals, and obviously Champions League quarterfinals.
Listen, it's a hell of a. What's the scheduling of the cup around the Champions League games? I think I know they have such a strong squad, but obviously that'd be the one. I mean, listen, it's priced that way for a reason. I mean, that's effectively why they are 9-1. It's that fixture scheduling, so that's obviously factored into it. That'd be my concern. You know?
But if there's ever a club that's ever been built that could probably handle a fixture congestion like this, it probably, like you say, is this Man City side. And I think moving on to the weekend's action, we'll probably see some significant rotation in the FA Cup. You think players like Kyle Walker, who have been on the fringes recently, will likely come back in. You think Foden would get a start. You think people like Mahrez, who are kind of in and out, Bernardo Silva, who's not played that much, will all probably come back in against Everton. And, Aguero's been fit and barely played. And these are obviously all world-class players that they'll be able to bring back in for the game against Everton at the weekend. They've beaten them in their last 6 games. I can't really see it going any other way than a Man City win, and that's obviously why we're looking at a 1-3 price at the minute for them.
Yeah, I think the thing about City is that there was a bit of chat in October, November, effectively like this difficult season, the fixtures, but whatever sports science and whatever they're doing, they've nailed it right in terms of peaking at the right times, and clearly, look at, as you said, Foden in recent weeks, they've obviously pulled them back a small bit. Clearly, there's a method to that there, because he's. Yeah, man, it's a fun bet. All right, the 9-1 now, I have to say. Yeah, I think
not bad to be able to pull Foden back and push De Bruyne in instead, is it? So
that's ridiculous. Yeah, it is. But when you think about it, what price were they? October, November to win the league? It's sort of scary when you think about it.
They were like 5-2 at one stage, weren't they? Yeah. I was thinking at the start of the season they were unraveling, but you have a nice fourfold for us, Adam, which Dan, I can just tell he's getting anxious as to whether he should back on Lane or whether he should play the 4 place market with Darver Star. But Anton, Adam, for the weekend, you have a fourfold for us.
Yeah, slightly bigger price than Envoy Land, but Bournemouth are obviously taking on Southampton in the FA Cup. Southampton's form's been ropey at best. I think they could, and Bournemouth obviously not been in bad form, so I think they could potentially get quite a surprise result there. And then obviously Man City, Chelsea and Manchester United all to win their respective games, brings that in about 27-2 at the minute. So we're looking at very good value. I think the one that's questionable for me, I think United Leicester could be a very close game. I'd be interested again, obviously, with United playing in the Europa League at AC Milan tonight.
Yeah.
What the team will be in that regard, whether there'll be some changes there, and whether potentially Leicester could look to play their strongest 11 and maybe get a result there. I think that's the potential one that might let the leg down. But 27-2, it's interesting value, I thought.
Just Dan, before we finish up, obviously we should reiterate here, both of us are very sweet on Drogheda United. So if you are backing horses today, don't be afraid to put it into a double or a treble. That'll give you far bigger odds than just backing, for example, Envoy Lane to win. But Dan, finally, just on Ireland, what can punters expect of Ireland in the World Cup qualifiers, do you think? Obviously starting off against Serbia later this month.
Yeah, well, I know I'm expecting the squad to be named this afternoon. It's Thursday afternoon as we speak now. So it's going to come out shortly. Very hard to know. I mean, big game in Serbia on Wednesday. As it stands, like, going to have a goalkeeper who's never played for Ireland before in goals. Queeving Kelleher, all going to plan if he's fit. New centre-half partnership. Missing key players in a number of areas. Very hard, Johnny. Like, I don't know. It's very hard to form a very strong opinion on what to expect. But like, you have to be honest about that. I think it's like, you'd expect like Serbia to be very strong favourites at home next Wednesday, albeit closed doors football. It's not the intimidating Belgrade that you might sort of picture going to Belgrade being. But I don't know. Like, it's very hard. Like, I normally you talk about Ireland and we could sit down here between us and probably name 10, 11 of a starting 11 and think about it. Honestly, I think if I sat down to talk about their team for next week, it could be struggle to get 4, 5, 6 names right. When you're doing that, it's very hard to have a very firm opinion on what they're going to be like. I think it's a real job for them to, with 2 or 3 training sessions. They are training, I think, at Man City's training ground on Monday, so hopefully that can sort of rub off on them.
That is clutching at straws a little bit, but Adam,
that's all I've got. Yeah.
So Adam, has he done a good audition to be brought on as a regular League of Ireland expert if Ben Keith is rolling in the cash after Cheltenham?
Well, the proof is in the pudding on this show. We'll have to see how the first games turn out before we can make that decision. But I was just going to make a point on the Irish that obviously if you were as good at producing footballers as you are horses, you might not be in as much trouble as you potentially are.
Yeah. We're gonna leave it there actually on that note.
We've also got to mention the trader chat, Johnny, because I know the traders will shout at us if we forget to do this again. We're 6 games this week on the Trader Challenge for a chance to win a £200 free bet if you're the best entry this week, or a £10 bet if you can beat the Star Sports traders. The games are Everton, Man City, Brighton against Newcastle, Chelsea, Sheffield United, West Ham against Arsenal, Leicester against Man United, and Aston Villa against Spurs. Yeah, I've got them all. And if you can predict the scores in those games, you can bag yourself a £200 free bet with Star Sports.
Excellent. And as much as Cheltenham is obviously 4 days of extravaganza, there's plenty more action. The Lincoln starting in Ireland on Sunday. Dan, the Curragh is back on Sunday. It's all very mad that it's just come around so quickly.
There's a lot happening at the moment. Yeah, there's just there's a lot of, there's a lot of it coming together. I can just I'll be in my own football zone at that stage, but you can be. I look forward to hearing your flat nuggets.
Yeah, well, I'll finish up on a little nugget actually. And Dan and I owned a horse called I Skipper. We part-owned it with a few other characters, and he actually won at the Curragh. He managed a victory at the Curragh. 4 days, Dan, was it, after winning Killarney, Wednesday to Sunday?
As someone said afterwards, possibly the worst race ever run up the Curragh. But he did. Yeah. For some reason, they put a 0 to 65 at the end of.
I think it was even a 0 to 60. Was it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it was 0 to 60. You're right. He was carrying a penalty, and he was still probably. Still had a featherweight on him, I'd say. But I
have a photo of him there in the background and all. But the end of this story is there was a guy called Alex involved in the horse as well, and he was kind of doing quants for Paddy Power and betting models and all this stuff. And he left anyway, and they set up their own company or whatever. And I've only been in touch with many of the syndicate members intermittently since, but obviously Dan and I are in touch constantly. But anyway, Alex's business was sold on Monday for over $40 million. That was Trader Chat. I, on the other hand, will be back next week.